Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I'm here today at the Institute of Military Technology, taking a look at some of the excellent cool guns that they have in their firearms collection. And today we have an extremely rare and interesting early semi-auto pistol. This is a model of 1896 Maxim Silverman pistol. And there's some interesting history behind it. So just to start off, it is a simple blowback, kind of converted into a sort of a delayed blowback. Automatic pistol, box magazine fed, and this particular one is chambered for the 7.63 Borchardt cartridge. That's the same cartridge that was used in the C93 Borchardt. It is dimensionally the same as 7.63 Mauser, but a lighter powder charge to it. And what's interesting about this is it's probably not actually a design that was thought up by Hiram Maxim. Instead, it's a design that was thought up by his assistant, Louis Silverman. Now, Silverman was the first person that Maxim hired when he arrived in England and set up a business. In fact, when he hired Silverman, he was still working to untangle his attachments to the gas and electric power industries. And Silverman would stay with him for many years, pretty much through his whole career in machine guns. Now, unfortunately, and Silverman seems to have been a very clever guy, a very capable assistant and employee, would go on to be a factory supervisor for Maxim. Unfortunately, Maxim kind of didn't treat him as well as maybe he could have, was a bit condescending towards Silverman. And when this particular gun was patented, it's patented under the names of both Hiram Maxim and Louis Silverman. But Maxim doesn't mention this pistol at all in his autobiography. And Maxim was really a quite capable self-promoter. And if he'd had any involvement with this, any significant involvement with this pistol, we'd really expect to see it in his writings. Now, he does mention a follow-up version of this pistol, which was much more based on his own ideas. Looking at this follow-up, you can definitely see the influence of the Maxim Machine Gun in it, and it doesn't hurt that it has a nice big M on the grips. But this first version really seems to have been Silverman's idea. Now, I said it was a blowback pistol, and it was probably, that's the one failing of this gun. It is in many ways a gun well ahead of its time. It's very ergonomic, it's elegant and simple inside, it's not that difficult to machine. It's a really cool pistol. The problem was they chose too powerful of a cartridge for it. The 7.63 Borchardt really kind of needs a locked breech in order to function properly. And we can see that. We'll get into this in some detail, but there's a spring here that was added to the side that doesn't appear in the patent drawings or documents of this pistol. And it's pretty clear that as originally designed, the pistol simply opened way too fast, and they needed some way to slow down the action, and that's why this spring was added to the outside. Now in total, there are only 3 of these guns, as far as we know, that were ever made. There's certainly only 3 existing today. And it's kind of interesting that all 3 of them, each one is in a different caliber. So this one's 7.63 Borchardt. There's a second one that is in a unknown 8.45 millimeter cartridge, which appears to be 7.63 Borchardt necked up to about 8.5 millimeter. Almost certainly an experiment by Maxim and Silverman. And then there's a third one, which is a much larger frame, which is actually in 455 Webley, an impressively large automatic pistol. So while the gun had a lot of potential to it, it never ended up going into production. I think partly because Maxim wasn't really all that invested in it. It wasn't his idea. It seems to have been something that he allowed Silverman to tinker with and work on with the tacit support of the Maxim company. But at the same time, Maxim was really focused on military contracts and large-scale production. And as you can see, or as becomes clear from the development of this gun, it really wasn't suited to a full-power military pistol cartridge. They didn't really consider the potential for a civilian market for a lower powered cartridge. Maybe it could have been successful, but they didn't follow up on that. And there was enough work going on with the machine guns in the Maxim company that it appears there really just wasn't time and resources available to follow up on the pistols. So they ended up making probably not more than just the 3 that we still have today, maybe just those 3. And then the project kind of withered from there. So it's very much a forgotten weapon. Why don't we go ahead and take a closer look? We'll pull it apart and I'll show you the elegant insides of this design. So we normally start with markings and controls, and that's going to be pretty simple here because there are no markings and there's basically only a couple of simple controls. These were, of course, all prototype pistols, so they're not even serialized. Kind of cool, these came out of England, but they are pre-1898 guns, so they don't even have import marks required. Control-wise, obviously, we have the trigger. We have a magazine in the grip, and there is a magazine release right here on the heel. So I pull that back. That allows me to pull out the magazine. Very sharp angle to it. Before people ask, because I know they will, this was not influenced by the Luger because it does predate the Luger. And this probably did not have any influence on some of the more modern guns that we see that look stylistically similar, like High Standards or Ruger automatic pistols, simply because this gun was obscure enough that it's very unlikely that any of those designers were familiar with it. But at any rate, there's our magazine, holds 8 cartridges, 763 Borchardt. This is a single action pistol, so we have a cocking piece back here. Here, click, that's cocked, and then pull the trigger, drop the striker here. There is no hammer. There is no manual safety on the pistol. If it had gone into commercial production, they probably would have added one, but for this, at this stage of development, there was none. And then this is kind of a delaying spring. In fact, this is exactly a delaying spring. So we have a bolt inside the pistol here. When it fires, what it has to do is actually lift this spring up out of the receiver. So you can see it lifting right there, and I have to get it popped all the way up in order to cycle the gun. It's really quite a strong spring. There's the gun fully cycled, comes back down, pull the trigger, drop the striker, and fire. Disassembly is really slick and easy on this. There are 3 screws that I need to take out first. I'm going to pull out these 2 and take this spring off the outside. And then I have 1 screw here that connects this top dust cover to the striker assembly. There's the delaying spring. You can see this is kind of a crude part. It's nicely polished on the outside, but some of the shaping on the inside leaves a bit to be desired. This was something, like I said, that was added on to the gun. They discovered it was opening too fast and needed a way to slow down the action. So they milled a hole in the frame, drilled and tapped those 2 holes, and added that spring that the bolt has to overcome. You can see the edge of the bolt right there as it starts to come back. It's going to be interrupted by that spring and has to pull that spring up and out. All right, then, removing the screw that holds the dust cover on, I can pull the bolt slightly back, lift this up, and the dust cover has this little nose piece that locks into the bolt there, so I can pop it out as I have. Now with the dust cover off, the main disassembly is to unscrew the rear breech plug, which I can do with the striker. The hole back here for the striker is rectangular. The hole back here for the striker is rectangular, so I can use this basically as a screwdriver to unscrew the breech plug. Once that's unscrewed, then it just pulls out the back of the frame. Now we have 2 pieces here. We have the bolt and we have the firing pin / striker. It's all one continuous long piece. And then there's a cross pin here holding on this rear cap. If you take the cross pin out, which I'm not going to do, then you can pull off the rear breech plug and the spring. But you can see everything through that spring right there. Now the way this actually functions, first off, let me point out, this has a floating ejector in it. So you can see the ejector pin right there. That is this absolutely tiny little piece. By the way, this fell out like 1,000 times while I was doing the prep work for this video. That is the ejector. Little tiny thing. And it sits in this channel, and it's shorter than the channel is. So it can be, when you have a cartridge in there, it pushes the ejector down, and then this groove on the bolt rides on a lug in the frame. You can see how that lug guides the bolt. When the bolt comes back to this point, that lug is going to hit the back of the ejector, push it forward, and cause it to pop the case out the top of the pistol. So it would do that about there. Then once the case is ejected, the ejector is now fully inside the bolt and can ride over the top of that lug. Now the firing mechanism here is also pretty slick and really efficient and well thought out. So you have this front flange of the firing pin is the same diameter as the inside of the bolt, and you can see right down there that there's something interrupting so that the firing pin can't go all the way forward. That is the sear here. It pivots on this pin, and if we look at it right there, you can see it moving up and down. See it better from this angle. There you go. So now it's out of the way, firing pin can go forward. Now it's in the way, it'll hold the firing pin back. If I put the firing pin in, that's where it gets held until this is pushed, at which point the firing pin can go all the way forward, and it protrudes out the front and fires the cartridge. So that's the sear, and it is activated by the trigger pushing that bar. That bar goes up, pushes the front of the sear up, which pushes the rear of the sear down, which moves it out of the way and allows the firing pin to drop. So in this case we have only one spring, and it acts as both the striker spring / firing pin spring and also the main recoil spring. So I can demonstrate that here. You can see this is far enough back that our striker has been cocked, and it's now sitting back. The firing pin is sitting back in the bolt. When I pull the trigger, it drops forward and fires. And then inertia will cause the firing pin to start moving backwards before the bolt, so it'll recock like that. Then it would cycle if you had the dust cover, which connects this to the bolt, which I don't have on right now, so that won't work. So overall, this is really a very elegantly designed pistol. It's not that difficult to manufacture. A lot of the things like the bolt really can start as just a simple piece of bar stock that doesn't require any really complex machining operations to complete. The frame itself is a little more complex, but not nearly as bad as some things I've seen. For example, the top of the frame here really just is a hollow tube. There are no particular features in there that are difficult to make. The barrel's then, I believe, threaded in. It's kind of unfortunate that Maxim didn't decide to take the opportunity to develop this more as a small civilian pistol, where it might have actually been one of the better early blowback pistols. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I am thrilled to have been able to finally get my hands on one of these Maxim Silverman pistols. This one, of course, provided here by the Institute of Military Technology. They are a collection and research center established to preserve this sort of history and help educate people about it. Very much the same sort of mission that I have myself. So the collection is not generally open to the public, but it is available for research and study by appointment. So if you're interested, by all means, get in contact with them. There are some fantastic items in the collection here, like this one. And of course, if you enjoy seeing this sort of thing on the internet, where everyone can get easy access to it, please do consider checking out my Patreon page. It's support from the folks there at $1 a month that really makes it possible for me to travel to places like this and bring you guys fantastic early pistols like this one. Thanks for watching.